Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It is my pleasure to be MC for our virtual career panel. I'm Tammy McBride, Career Connected Learning Specialist for the North Central ESD. On behalf of the North Central ESD and Apple STEM Network, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate you making your time to join us today. We hope you will learn a lot in this half hour together, and we have a great panel lined up for you. We want to thank and acknowledge the Washington State Department of Transportation for joining us today and taking personal time out of their schedules for the panel discussions. Today we have two career professionals from the Washington State Department of Transportation who will give us a short individual presentation about their positions. Each career professional will be followed by a short Q&A. As an attendee, you will need to type your questions to the panelists in the Q&A box if you are with us on Zoom. And if you are Facebook Live with us, you can type your questions there. To begin this program, I am pleased to introduce Lauren Lobzak, Communications Manager of the North Central region, to deliver opening remarks.
Hi, thank you so much. This is a really neat opportunity for me. I've been with the Washington State Department of Transportation now for just a little over a year. And many years ago, when I was at a different position at Chelan County, an individual from WSDOT came and did a presentation about avalanche control. And I thought, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of that team. And just by happy coincidence, I did end up being a little bit part of that team. So this is a real pleasure for me to share about this work. Just a little bit about the Washington State Department of Transportation and what we do. Our mission is to provide safe and reliable, don't have it memorized yet, safe and reliable, cost-effective transportation options to improve communities and economic vitality for people and businesses, meaning we handle the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, those roundabouts, the signal lights that are owned by the state. And part of our job is making sure that not only are they in good repair, but they are actually passable. The North Central region is one of 6 in the state, and we have a lot of space to cover. We are about 13,500 square miles and have about 38 cities inside of that region area. And we also have over 2,000 square miles of roadway that we keep track of here at this region. We also have several mountain passes, and we have and here's, you can see the elevations and what highway they're on. A couple of those passes, they close for the season, those North Cascade highways passes. And we're gonna be talking about some of the work that we do on Stevens to keep that open, and what it takes to not only evaluate that work, but also make sure that it's done safely and that the public is aware so that they can make travel accommodations accordingly. Stevens Pass is, as you can see, it does get a lot of snow. I can't remember how much snow we got this year, but we're always dealing with snow. It snowed last week when we were doing the tech run for this presentation itself. So you can always expect the unexpected up there. One of the things that we do have is some active avalanche control that we do, and that is a big process that requires a lot of real professional expertise. And I am happy to share that I am a tiny part of it. You'll see this list. This is at our traffic management center. Every time we do avalanche control work on Stevens Pass, Mark Peters, who you will meet later, has to get through this list of items to make sure that we're doing it safely, that the public is aware that that stretch of road has been cleared, and that all the things are accounted for, that emergency responders know, such as State Patrol. And so there's a big old checklist, and right down in the middle of the checklist is me. I'm a line item on that. It's call Lauren Loebsack and let me know that this is happening. And then I put out my feelers. And so there's a lot of different moving parts when we try to get work like this done. But first and foremost, we have to know if there is a need for this work, and that is completed by Harlan Sheppard and his team, and I will pass it off to Harlan.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Yeah, as Lauren mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts to doing avalanche control. I'm a team member. The team is led by Mike Stanford, and then there's one other permanent seasonal, Alan Willard. And we're responsible for North Cascades Highway and Stevens Pass Highway as our areas that are primary avalanche zones. So let me just share my screen here. How are we looking there?
Looks good.
Okay. Yeah, so my job title is Forecasting Control Technician 2. I've been with the Washington Department of Transportation for 9 seasons, 9 years. And primary function of the job is risk management. And so we monitor snowpack, weather, and avalanche conditions. And then we take steps when we feel like we need to reduce the risk to other workers and traveling public. And then we communicate that through the TMC with Mark and with Lauren to get the message out on social media, and so we don't inconvenience people using the road as least inconvenience as possible. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about was some of the technology we use, since this is a STEM program. We're kind of in between old technology and new technology, and some of the old technology works. On your left, I guess it would be, is 101, 105 howitzer. And you can see the bullet leaving the gun there. It was captured by new technology of a drone. We have a drone program as well that has been really useful for making observations and taking amazing photos of where you want to normally stand when you're shooting a howitzer. And then on the right is upgraded technology. We have there's a really nice brand new snowcat there that's working to clear some of the slide chutes on North Cascade Highway. Okay, we are not moving forward.
I've had good luck with the space bar, Harlan.
Okay, I'm not having any luck with the space bar. I'm gonna try something different. There we go. Not having luck with that either. Interesting. Okay. Well, we're working with the new technology while trying to figure out old technology. While I'm working on this, a little bit of background. My work history and education, I've always been interested in skiing, and so I pursued skiing passionately, and that has led me into the snow science world. Started with avalanche control and snow science as a ski patroller, and went on to guiding and forecasting, and working as an educator, and then also working here in the highways risk management. I have combined that experience with professional instruction through the Canadian Avalanche Association, taking their professional course progression. And then from college, some of the classes that really stand out in this work is physics, statistics, communication, microbiology. Those are ones that would stand out the most. Yeah, so I am not even able to get out of this screen, which is really fun. I wonder if there's a presenter mode that you can override, Tammy, from your position, or if someone else wanted to, because it is not allowing. Oh, here we go. Let me try.
Harlan, you want to email them really quickly to me, and
Here we go.
be able to. Oh,
How's that?
Oh, there we go.
every
Oh,
time
man.
I offer that,
All
then
coming together. Okay, let's everybody just breathe a little bit. That's our other part of the risk management is stress management. So just briefly, our program overview, talk really briefly about forecasting and mitigation, and then some of the technology. As Lauren mentioned, we have quite a few passes, but our primary avalanche areas are on Stevens Pass, US Highway 2, and Washington Pass, North Cascades, Highway 20. And we have about 138 active slide paths. And identifying where those areas are hazardous is really an important part of our work. To have an avalanche problem, we need unstable snow. We need the avalanche terrain, which would be one of those slide paths. And then we need a trigger. Yeah. And so unstable snow can be a result of just different layering or real intense meteorological events where, you know, we may have heard of atmospheric river, where large amounts of precip come into the mountains and bury the highways. And we coordinate a lot with the maintenance crews. While they're cleaning up the roads, they're making observations. They may see a small slide on the side of the road, and they can communicate that with TMC, with Mark, and then it gets back to us, or they can call us directly and say, hey, we're starting to see some snow moving around. And that's one of the ingredients. Knowing the terrain, we've done extensive GIS hazard mapping, and we have a new avalanche atlas. If you go to Washington State DOT Avalanche Atlas, you can look up statewide avalanche atlas, and it'll have some of the attributes about the specific areas, how frequent they slide, what the magnitude of those avalanches are, what the history is of those. If there's history, there might be some pictures attached of slides that have hit the road. So that's a great resource that people can check out. And that's another, you know, a real key part of the Washington State Department of Transportation is they have a GIS program and mapping, not just related to avalanche, but related to all kinds of roadside and road features. Great skill set there to learn and to use in your career. And then we look at the weather and we look at the specific terrain features and see if we can trigger avalanches. As I mentioned, the newer technology, so that blue arrow on the left, this was from a trip to Canada this spring or before the COVID, and that is called a remote avalanche control system, or RAC. And they're mounted up in known start zones, placing explosives there by a helicopter, and then you can call them up with the computer. We were just taking a flyby so we could see how the technology worked, but some really neat technology coming in with that. Some of the tools and technology we use at WSDOT is we have a first generation rack system. On the left there, you see a tower with a little box, and it deploys explosives when we can call it up with the computer. We use old school technology of a bomb on a stick. We also have, as I mentioned, the military weapons, the howitzer program. We used to have tanks as well, but the tanks have gone away. And then there's Avalancher up there, the night shot. It's compressed gas and it sends explosive up onto the hill. And then we also have bomb trams, gravity bomb trams that we slide down into the start zones. So another big part of our risk management and an interesting part of the job for me is we bring in multiple agencies who operate in our highway corridors, and we do a coordinated rescue training day annually with these different agencies, the sheriffs, the state patrol, the ski areas, tow truck drivers, PUD, and we get out and practice what to do if you're caught in an avalanche, what to do if you come across an avalanche on the road, how to avoid getting caught in an avalanche, those types of things. So it's really neat communicating with a bunch of different people from different backgrounds and trying to get everybody working on the same page. And if we do have an event, so.
Harlan, you had a question. Why did they take the tanks away?
Oh yeah, so why did they take the tanks away? We were the only program, so there's 17 users in North America that use military weapons, and WSDOT was the only program using the M60 tanks. Everyone else was using the A101, 105 howitzer. And so we, to meet the standards and conform with the rest of the users group and become more of a unified body, we went to that weapon. The other thing is the tanks had about 10,000 moving parts that we didn't use. They were a good weapon for sending, explosives into starting zones, but they had some other maintenance challenges. And that's one of the challenges of the older technology that we're phasing out is the knowledge of people who maintain those systems is going away. The guns are 80 to 100 years old. The tanks were 40 years old. And so as new technology, or as that technology is getting older, we're going to be working to replace with new technology. And I've actually worked with Wenatchee High School in their STEM class and did some brainstorming. The kids came up with great ideas on different mitigation strategies and technology. And so feel free to send them my way. The one other thing I wanted to talk about is other avalanche related careers in education. So there are a number of universities, Montana State University, Simon Fraser University up in Vancouver, BC, Colorado Mountain College. They all have avalanche specific career or college programs. Great way to get more education. There's also recreational and professional avalanche classes available. If you go to Northwest Weather and Avalanche Center, NWAC, on their page, they have a link for educational resources. And then the related careers, I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time in beautiful places and beautiful mountains, either doing the ski patrolling or mountain guiding, or working up on Washington Pass or Stevens Pass area. And so some of those careers are, there's snow scientists who work in labs. There's snow scientists who are working in mapping and software and modeling of avalanche dynamics. And then there's practitioners who are out there, you know, throwing explosives on a hillside and seeing what happens. So I encourage people, if they're interested in that kind of work, to check it out. And, you know, I want to just mention that at WSDOT, the Avalanche program is a really small part of a bigger team. And we interface with TMC and maintenance, and most of the time we just make a mess and those guys clean it up. And we get, you know, we get the publicity, but I think the, you know, the unsung heroes are the people who are out there in the trenches day to day doing this stuff. And so with that, I'm open to other questions if you guys have them.
So if anybody has any questions at this time, please type them in the Q&A box if you are on Zoom with us. If you are Facebook Live, please type your questions in the comments.
Thanks, Harlan. And so Harlan does that part of the work. And then there is, well, we have the Traffic Management Center, and each region has a Traffic Management Center, and it has a lot of screens that show all of the cameras that we have throughout the region. It has radios, it has basically it's the hive mind for what is happening out in the field at the moment. And it can be pretty busy in there. I have definitely come in times where I'm like, wow, our Mark needs a few more arms and a few more ears to be able to hear what's going on. But somehow he keeps it all together. And so I'd like to introduce now Mark Peters, who works in our Traffic Management Center.
Well, hi there. Thanks for having me. This is a really cool chance to explain what we do over here. Let me see if I can successfully share my screen here. Did that come through? Okay, so yes, my name is Mark Peters. My position is Traffic Safety Systems Operator. It's a lot of words. Most people have no idea what it means. I might be included there. To try and explain it pretty good, it's a little bit dispatch, a little bit traffic management, a lot of information moving around, and some communications thrown into it. It's definitely a job I did not know existed before I got it. So all of you learning about the different positions out there, that's a great advantage you have today, and take advantage of it. How I got this job, I stumbled into it, literally, maybe even backwards. As I said, I didn't know it existed, and I gotta tell you, it's probably the best job I've had, and I honestly love it. People wonder, I work in a traffic management center. We call it the TMC. We have a lot of abbreviations at DOT. For anybody wondering what the TMC is, let me see if I can get there. That's what it looks like. That's where I work. Where Harlan gets to trek around the mountains, blowing things up, I come here every single day. And you hear a lot of people talk about how they have an office job and they trudge to work and it's the same thing every day. The thing I love the most about my job, it is never the same thing. One day we could have a road closed from a massive apple spill, and the next day we have to close the road because Harlan and his gang have blown up the side of a mountain and there's a 30-foot pile of snow in the road and everything in between. And when we get new people working here, I always tell them this was my 18th winter now in the TMC. And this is my 9th winter. That makes me sound younger. So I started last year. What I always tell them is I guarantee as many years as I've been here, you are gonna see something once a month that I've never seen. And that's just the nature of the job. Weird stuff happens, wacky stuff happens, horrible things happen. It's how it goes. As you can see, we have a lot of computer screens, a lot of monitors up. The video wall gives us the traffic cameras around the region. From here, we control the overhead VMSs that you drive under with the messages of Stevens Pass closed or collision 2 miles ahead. Those are controlled from here. Sometimes you'll drive around and you'll see the yellow flashing lights tuned to 1610 or tuned to 560. And those are recorded here and broadcast here. My kids used to love that when they were little. They could hear dad on the radio, thought I was a big DJ or something, but it's not really that glamorous. Let's see, VMSs, HARs, and then we also send out alerts updating the WSDOT website with a lot of things that impact travel. And it's really hard to come up with a list of how many different types of events come through the TMC. This is a shot of an avalanche that was brought down by Harlan and his guys. It was really dramatic. This is a newer camera for us. We just got it last year, and it's pointed right at one of the most active slide area, and it has been, I'll say it's been one of the most informative cameras we have, but as a side benefit, it's also been one of the most entertaining cameras we have, because it's not every day you get to watch a avalanche come in onto a highway in live as it's happening. So that's just that is a cool part of the job. But all sorts of stuff, avalanches, construction projects. Here's everyone's favorite roundabout getting built on the south end of Wenatchee. And we had a bird's eye view of the whole thing. And the stuff that went smooth was great. The stuff that didn't go smooth was still great too. You know, it's good to watch it. We get collisions. This was up on the west side of Stevens Pass. Citizens stopped to help. Not everything happens on camera. We're really lucky when it does, because one of the job functions we have is to communicate with our maintenance folks as well as Avalanche and everybody. So with this happening on camera, we could immediately call State Patrol and let them know how many cars were involved. Call our maintenance guys to let them know. We could activate our VMSs to warn of collisions ahead, of a collision ahead and traffic impacts. Put something out on the website. When it happens on camera, we get a lot of immediate information. Generally, we get that information over the phone or by radio. We also have a radio system. I'll go back in that center console there. We have a radio system where we talk to all of our maintenance units as well as engineering and the region outfits as well. It's mainly maintenance from the Canadian border down to Othello and from Stevens Pass over to Grand Coulee Dam. So it's a lot of different people, a lot of different areas. And I'd love to tell you that it's calm and relaxing, and things that happen on the road happen one at a time in order, and each event waits for the next one to happen, but that is rarely the case. Most often in the TMC, there is either very little going on or 19 things happening at one time. And that's just kind of the flow of the work, and you just kind of get used to that. Some collisions are bigger than others. This one, it was up at Grand Coulee, and it involved a semi in a building. Again, we get that information from the cameras and relay it to State Patrol. They dispatch emergency medical. We let our maintenance guys know, because there's so many competing interests when a major event occurs on the road. There's some people who want to secure the scene. There's obviously emergency medical, that primary is health and safety. But at the same time, from a DOT perspective, we also got to keep traffic moving. And if something happens that closes a road, once traffic starts building up, we're not only inconveniencing the public, which their inconvenience isn't as important as other things in these situations, but it also inhibits more emergency vehicles arriving at the scene or our guys doing any kind of repair work. Because if I can turn on a sign or put out a highway alert and turn a 400 car backup into a 50 car backup, that's going to help our guys out there managing the scene. Like I said, some stuff is a little funnier than others. Somebody may have pulled the wrong switch and all of a sudden there's apples in the road. This happens too, and those have to be cleaned up. Usually it's cleaned up by the person that spills it. Sometimes if it's a hazard, we may have to run a plow through and just kick them all off onto the shoulder. We get a lot of different situations. So these are our numbers for this last year, 2019. So everything from abandoned vehicles, which seemingly are smaller events and they're not as hazardous, to things like collisions happen, fires alongside the road is a safety issue. So as you can see, it goes for anything from like a chemical spill, which we only had 2 of, to rocks in the road, which that means our office processed in 2019 455 different times where we had to handle rocks in the road. And by handle, I mean that information comes to us either by a camera, usually not, a phone call from somebody from the public, a phone call from Rivercom, who dispatches the county, like the sheriffs and the deputies, or a phone call from State Patrol Dispatch, or one of our own guys, one of our own crew members. And then we contact the crew member that's in service if they're working that day for that specific section of road. If it's a weekend or a nighttime when we don't have somebody working, then it results in a call out. We have to call somebody at home so that they can come out and remove that. So as you can see, 135 signal issues, 59 times trees fell. Doesn't mean they were laying in the road. They could be laying over the road or laying extended over a lane, but it's something that has to be cleared. Live animals in the road. Doesn't happen as much as dead animals, but it does happen. Cows get out and you want to get them out of the road before they turn into dead animals on the road. So all those added up, 2,800 calls in 1 year, which sounds like a lot, and I would like to say that it is a lot. And like I said, a lot of times it's all happening at once, not every time. But that's kind of an idea of the variety of calls that come into the TMC. And that's really, as far personal satisfaction, as far as job goes, that's what I like. That's one of the things I value. It really is never the same day twice. It's always something new. It's always something different. And from the personal satisfaction, what I get out of my job, it helps me. I like the feeling of helping people, and that's one of the things that gravitated me towards this work, and has allowed me to stay here. And it helped our job that we do in the TMC. It helps the public out, so people can make it to Grandma's house over the mountains a little better. Or I've had a call in the middle of the night back when I worked graveyard. It was when we had those fires up north around Pateras and Brewster, from a crying mom who her husband had gone back to save their structures, their buildings on their farm, and sent the mom and the kids to some relative's house, and they couldn't find their way because of the smoke. So she didn't know where she was. So I had to ask a bunch of questions and get out of her some local landmarks, figure out where she was going, and then give her directions. And she had to call back a couple times to give me more information. But that kind of helping the public, you can't go home after doing that and not feel good about your day. So that's one of the things I get out of it anyway.
Mark, you have a question.
Okay.
What happens when you don't see it in time, or you're not there for work when something happens?
That happens. That can happen. As far as not being here for work, I'm not here all the time, obviously, but the TMC is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, from November 1st through the end of March. We're one of the smaller regions, so we're only 24/7 for those 5 months, November through March. After that, we're 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. and not weekends. Yakima is South Central region, and during the hours that we aren't here in our office, they cover our phones and our radio. So they act as us, and they do a really good job. It's challenging for them because it's not their home area, their home region, but they do really well. So we're always covered as far as somebody here. We don't always see the event in time. Rocks in the road fall down and we don't know they're there. Sometimes the first indication that there's a rock in the road is sadly because someone has hit it. Some people think there's some rocks that don't matter as much because they're not very big. I've seen instances, again from my office, not out there on the road, where a rock the size of a hamburger has caused somebody to hit it, jerk their steering wheel into a ditch, and end up in an injury collision. So it doesn't have to be a boulder for it to be a hazard.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, gravel can usually be handled fairly well, little gravel spills, but even at that, if a gravel truck spills a load of gravel on a corner and the next person comes along at 70 miles an hour, they're probably not going to handle it very well. So anything in the lane is a road hazard. Hopefully we hear about it before somebody hits it or comes upon it. Often we don't, and it turns into a response where State Patrol or emergency medical have to go out if there was an injury, and could involve a road closure. Or does that answer that? So the basic process, I'll give you an example of how we process the information that comes in. Stevens Pass, all the mountain passes call in weather during the winter, and it's 6 times a day. Basically every 4 hours they'll call in a weather report. unless there's a big change. They'll call in early if like it's all this, if it was clear skies and now it's snowing, they'll call in early. And they'll call in with different traffic advisories, traction tires advised, traction tires required, change required, or pass closed. That information literally comes from the maintenance person up on the pass in that plow truck there to us in the TMC. And then what we do with that information is give it out in a number of different ways to help the public, other government agencies, and interior DOT units. We can put it on the, going around the circle there, we can put it on the traffic advisory radio. The information goes on the DOT website. Some of it is automatically goes out on social media. Sometimes I'm on the phone with Lauren right there and letting her know of something we may want people to know about this. And then she'll put it out on different social media applications. A lot of that stuff auto updates on the DOT mobile app, which I'd like to pause right now and say, if you don't have that on your phone, I highly recommend it. And I'm not actually paid to say that. It's actually a really good map. You can access cameras, pass information, traffic information. It's just got a lot of stuff on it. Anyway, moving along. That information from the DOT person also gets updated to the 511 travel info number. So you can call that number and get information. We take that information and update State Patrol, because anything that affects the roadway generally affects State Patrol too. And some of that stuff from the mountain pass, like if you go to change required, actually lowers the legal speed limit. So we update the State Patrol so they know what the current speed limit is. Speed limit up there is usually 60 miles an hour, as that speed limit sign there says. We go to traction tires advised, and that means there's no oversized vehicles allowed on the road, and the speed limit, all the speed limit signs drop to 50. We go to traction tires required, and the speed limit drops to 40. And we go to change required, the speed limit drops to 30. The only speed limit we drop to below 30 is 0, and that's when we close the pass. So, and then as the lower left-hand corner there, variable message signs, well, we update those to try and help indicate what's ahead on the road. And that's about all for that. Let's see, did I miss anything? I was asked favorite parts of the job. I think the feeling you get helping people is a really good part of the job. I'm an information gatherer. I'm a history buff. That's, personal wise, that's what I like. And so this job naturally appeals to my personality because I like information. The job requires the person here to catalog information, get the information and distribute it. And I love that anyway. I love reading history or any kind of sports statistics. I love that kind of stuff. So the job really appeals to my personality. So that's one of the reasons I think I enjoy it as much. A day in the life in the TMC can be crazy. When we get new employees and we're training them, I tell them that a third of the time you're going to be sitting here and going, I can't believe they pay me to do this job. This is incredible. A third of the time you're going to go, oh, this is about right. This is about right. And a third of the time, you're going to want to throw your headset at the wall and walk out of here and never see this place again. And you just got to kind of balance it all out. Over the years, I've come to actually enjoy the stress and embrace it. When Lauren talks about coming in there, and you can come into the TMC at times and there's not a lot going on, and we'll chit chat about different projects that are going on out there. But you come in sometimes, and I do have two phones up, and talking on the radio. And there's a collision over here, a road closure over here, a roadside fire over here. And people walk away and go, oh man, I just don't know about that. And I'm sitting in there going, this is the best day ever. So I feel pretty lucky with this job. And that's about all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
There are a few, one of which I think this was geared towards Harlan, and then there was a few for you, Mark, since you're already on. Has there been any horrible accidents you have seen on camera?
No, and that's going to lead me to another point, to putting some kudos out to my coworkers. No, I've seen like that one picture that with the upside down Jeep, I believe it was. And there's been a couple other, and maybe some minor fender bender stuff that I've seen. A couple rollovers. We don't really zoom the cameras in, so we don't see anything gruesome anyway. Mm-hmm. So some kudos to my coworkers though. I have that choice. I'm sitting in an office safely away from these collisions, and I don't zoom the camera in because I have no desire to see it. I can see how it's affecting traffic, and that's really what my job is. How is this affecting traffic, and how can we help? I have a lot of coworkers who work out in the field, and they're the first ones on the scenes to these accidents. They don't have the choice to not see the horrible things. It's part of their jobs, and then they have to go home. And as we all know, some things you see, you're never going to unsee them. So I give them all the credit in the world.
I think this was geared towards Harlan. Do you ever get scared handling explosives? And have you ever come to a close call?
Yeah, so modern explosives that we handle have quite a few safeguards built into them. And we're overseen by Washington Department of Labor and Industries as well. And so there's standards and guidelines and practices, and we follow real strict policies and procedures on how to use the explosives. But it is a high risk part of the job. Tagging on to what Mark said, I think a higher risk part of the job that gets overlooked is just traffic on the road and working roadside. There's been quite a few accidents and injuries involving DOT employees over the years of vehicles getting hit by traveling public. And so the perception is we're doing something really high risk, and sometimes the risk is there, but it's pretty well proven technology. Personally, I have been caught in an avalanche before, and that was a good learning experience. And to take that into work with wanting to do a good job so that other people don't experience that. So yeah, sometimes by those bad experiences, we gain perspective.
There's one more question. What is the name of the application again? And thank you.
Our app?
The application. They said, what is the name of the application
Oh, probably
again?
the app for the phone. I believe it's just the WSDOT app. If you search WSDOT, it should come up.
Are you hiring currently?
Well, if only HR was on right now. Right now, we are currently in a hiring hold. I won't speak for that then, Brenda.
Yeah, actually, the best way to find out whether we're hiring is go to our website, www.wsdot.wa.gov, and there's a careers link at the top right-hand corner, and that will show any positions that are opening throughout the state, not just here in North Central region. Right now, we are in a slower hiring period, but that changes at any time. So always log in there, and there's also a way to receive notification as to what might be opening up in an area of the state that you might be interested in working. Now, as for Avalanche, we only actually have Avalanche staff here in our region and to the south of us in South Central region on, they work primarily on I-90. So that's a little bit limited, but the work that Mark does, we have in all 6 of our regions, and we also have dispatch with our Washington State ferries as well. So those are good places to look.
Okay, and then last question, are there any classes that we need to take in order to prepare ourselves for future jobs? I guess in a context for each of you, Harlan and Mark, if there's like a specific class that they could take.
Yeah, there, I highlighted there's some classes that stood out in my college education, but for Washington Department of Transportation, it's a large organization, and so we work with a bunch of different engineers, we work with radio techs, we work with carpenters, so there's a real diversity in the workforce, in the workplace, and so what I recommend is following your passion, what you're interested in, and there's probably a job that fits into that, whether it's like Mark talked about, like his, categorizing history and information. Specifically, there are classes for Avalanche specifically, and university programs that I mentioned as well. So.
Okay, There's
Yeah,
one last, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say a lot of what Harlan said there with classes and following your passion and stuff like that. One of the things that I think, especially as it pertains to my job, that can't be overrated is communication. Whatever communication skills you can either develop on your own or take in classes. Most jobs out there, I find my job is not a communications job. Lauren is our communications manager for our region. My job is not communications. It's not filed under communications. It's not communications. But what do? I communicate with the public by signs. I communicate with the public with travel alerts. I communicate with the public by phone. I communicate with the state patrol. You're going to only help yourself if you develop your communication skills. Know how to talk to people, be able to talk to people. It's going to take you a long way, almost whatever field you pick.
Right.
Thank you. The last question is, are there any summer jobs?
Brenda?
Just trying to unmute here. This year, we don't have anything available now. Earlier in the year, we usually post any of our internships that are normally on our engineering side. So if you go to school to become a civil engineer, that's something you might want to check out while you're in school, because we usually have summer internships in that area. And there have been times when we've had other summer help, but this year we don't have anything posted on that. Again, the website is the best place to find out about what might be available.
When do they need to check?
For the engineering jobs, we usually post those in mid-January to early February, but work can be posted at any time. So if something comes up, it could post at that time as well.
Okay.
Can I add one thing, Tammy?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Taking a commercial driver's license course is a really good way to get into any of the maintenance positions. It's a kind of a good ticket into getting on the crews. So that's a standalone course that people could take. Oftentimes we are looking for plow drivers for temporaries or seasonals over the winter, and then they can many of those folks work their way into permanent positions. There was one question I saw in there on why do you guys blow up the mountains?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to, our intent of what we do is not to cause environmental damage. We try to take the snow down in small, frequent avalanches and try to avoid having large avalanches that actually can cause a lot more environmental damage. And so that's why we use the explosives and the weapon systems we use to control the avalanches as much as we can when the highway's closed as well. So
Wonderful. If there are no other questions at this time, can I give just a moment here if there's any last lingering questions? Okay, well, I think that sums up our presentation this afternoon. I want to thank you all so very much for participating today in this virtual career panel. I hope you enjoyed the program. If you do have further questions or you would like some information, you can reach out to Lauren Losbeck, and she Lobsack, sorry. And she has her information that you guys can, I think, Lauren, can you show your screen again? She will have her information posted.
I'm not as quick on the draw as I thought I wanted to be. I thought I was going to be all.
That's okay. There we go. So if you have any further questions or you need some information, or you might want to ask a specific question to Harlan or Mark, reach out to Lauren. Her information is posted here. And also for more information to keep up to date with these events or virtual career panels, You can follow us on our Career Connected Learning Chelan and Douglas Facebook page, and also the Applestem Network Facebook page. In closing, on behalf of the North Central ESD and Applestem Network, we would like to thank the Washington State Department of Transportation for participating today. Thank you all so very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ah,
Are we not live? Are we still live?
no, we're not live anymore. So
Sorry about my cat. He somehow thought it was time to jump up.
You're still recording, though.
yeah, I'm about to stop that. It's okay.